Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by cbdMD. cbdMD is a trusted leader in the wellness industry, used by top games level athletes like Justin Medeiros, Annie Thorisdottir, and even everyday athletes like myself and you. To learn more and to save 20% on your next purchase, make sure to click the link in the description. On today's episode, I'm joined with Patrick Clark and Chad Schroeder to discuss some of the top storylines that we're watching for the Masters division going into the CrossFit Games. The division, it will take place on Thursday through Sunday next week, or Saturday rather. Masters, they have the most categories out of any of the divisions. 14 between both the men and the women, 10 athletes in each with a total of 140 athletes. So to simplify things for you guys, I've asked them both to pick the top 4 storylines that they're tracking throughout the Masters divisions. But before we dive into that, Chad, I want to start with you. Which division for the Masters do you think is the most competitive for the men's field?
For the men, I'm looking at 60 to 64. It's a pretty tight group there. Then men 40 to 44 as well. That's another cluster of a lot of past games athlete or Masters athletes. And then, of course, then the 35 to 39-year-old men, which is always exciting to see those new, freshly minted Masters take the stage for the first time on the Masters field.
PC, what do you think for the women's division, which is the most competitive?
I think the 40 to 44 age group, I mean, you have all 3 podium winners from all 3 podium places from last year returning. They're, which is very odd to see in the Masters division where you have the whole podium comes back, especially with a limited amount of spots than past years. But and then you also have newcomers coming in. You have someone like Jen Ryan who's competing in that for the first time in that division, and she's someone that qualified for semifinals at Granite Games. And then of course you have Becca Voigt Miller who finished second in that division last year, and she qualified for a semifinal at Granite Games as well. And then of course, I mean, Kelly Friel, who pretty much owns that division. I'm pretty sure Chad's going to talk about her a little bit, but that's just a stacked field. You got Kelly Marshall, you got Jamina Delamar. I mean, it's just a stacked field in that division, and that's the one that I'm concentrating. And it's not because I'm in that age group as well. It's because there's a lot of great competition, a lot of great athletes, and just not for their age, for any age, and that showed in the semifinals or in the quarterfinals.
So when we talk about there's so many great athletes among all of these different divisions, something new this year was that the field was cut from 20 athletes down to 10. I know we might talk about cuts a little bit later, but just looking at the way athletes get to the games, do either of you think that there is an opportunity to have a tiered system instead of percentage based for games spots?
I mean, obviously CrossFit's been through so many iterations and they've tried so many different things when it comes to qualifying. I mean, we had sanctionals and we've had, taken top 40 from the open, and that's for the individuals, but they haven't really messed too much with the Masters divisions or the age groups. This is like the first major one where they brought 10 in. I believe, was it 2019, Chad, where they only had 10
Yes.
as well? But that was, again, 2019 is the weird year. But I just, it's CrossFit. They're going to do whatever they want to do, but they're going to do it for what they feel is the best for that sport and best for the division. You're bringing the 10 best. I think 10 is a good number. However, I do wish it was kind of more skewed to how many people actually registered. Obviously, you had a bunch of 35, 39 year olds that registered for the Open and registered for semifinals and quarterfinals in that age group. And just grabbing the top 10 out of thousands, it's not a really good representation when you look at the 60 to 64, where you have less people signing up and they're still getting 10 spots as well. So, I mean, I think at some point CrossFit should address it based on percentages, but whether they do or not in the near future, I don't know.
It would be
Chad, what are your
nice.
thoughts on that?
It would be nice to see that more percentage based, because when you break out the numbers and participants, the earlier Masters age divisions by far dominate number wise, and it's kind of a downwards trend as you look at participants in the Open, the quarterfinals or semifinals for the Masters. So it'd be nice to give them maybe a little more in the in the earlier age groups. But again, it kind of gets CrossFit is balancing this logistics problem too of at the games. There's so many masters. There's going to be 180 age group athletes total this year with just the 10. And so like last year was 360. When you double that before they have the field. So it's always just a big logistics question. And it's tough. I mean, ideally, yeah, I'd like to see more of them out there, like 20 of them, but I think they're trying to balance that as well. But I think this year with the additional stage in the season for them, I think it helped get maybe the right 10 or is better than what they had done in the past when they just had 10 athletes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the 10 athletes that you will see are probably the most fit in those age groups, where in past years where you brought in 20 and you had some people who even the first workout, they didn't do the minimum work requirements and their weekend's done. So, and that happens a lot in the masters division, because obviously when you go to the games, it's the ultimate test, just not the ultimate test for individuals, but for masters too. So, they'll throw in something that masters normally don't see or normally don't do in the gym or do the extra work, and they'll hang them up. So bringing in 10 is a good number, I think, for this year. And like Chad said, hopefully maybe in the future they do make it more percentage, especially for some of the other divisions that have that, like the 35 to 39 to 40 to 44, 45 to 49.
Okay, so let's get into some of the storylines you guys were following. I like it because you both picked a different way to understand the topic, and I think that makes it more fun. We're going to get a little bit more meat for the Masters divisions. Chad, we'll start with you. What is your first storyline that people should be paying attention to at the games next week?
Well, for me, I'm a stats and numbers guy, so I always look at the records. What's up for grabs this year? Who could break what? That's how I always attracts my eye first. And the big ones right now is Will Powell and Mary Beth Prodromides. They're both vying to try to tie Susan Clark for the most Masters championships with 5. But Mary Beth and Will both have 4 right now, so they both have a good shot to tie Susan Clark. So that would be the first thing I'll be looking for on Saturday if that actually happens. And then podiums as well. Ironically, Mary Beth has the most Masters podiums with 6, but then Will has 5, and then also Lori Mishernick. I'm sorry if the name pronounced wrong, but she has 5 as well. So I think both of those two, Lori and Will, have a great chance to podium. So they could tie Mary Beth, unless Mary Beth podiums, and then she'll keep that title going. So I always like to see records breaking or where they move up and down the categories. And of course, event wins. Susan Clark way ahead with 23 Masters wins, but Will Powell's right behind her with 15. So, I mean, I don't even know how many events they have, but if they have 8 and he sweeps the board, he could tie her, but probably won't happen. But then Mary Beth has 14 right behind her, and then a couple others that are competing are also up on that list. So always checking out the record books. So
it's always so fun to see the records and the numbers all laid out. We're going to rely on you to do that. I'm not a numbers girl.
If I'm not mistaken, Chad, the thing about Susan is she's 5 for 5.
Yes, she is amazing.
That's the thing, is like she's 5 games, 5 titles. So I mean, the only 2 people that
perfect record.
The only 2 people that can claim that are Matt Fraser and Tia Claire Toomey. That won 5 straight.
There was actually a couple other Masters too, but yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
but she's like 5 appearances, 5 wins.
Oh, for 5, yes,
yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, even Tia and Matt can't claim that because they've had runner-up finishes.
Yeah, and the joke about Susan is she always takes a year off, so this is her year off, and then so if she comes back, she'll be 64 next year. So, which will be challenging, but maybe that's a good challenge for her to try to win it in the last age of the age group. So we'll see.
She might wait 2 years and jump 65 and win it there, and then be 6 for 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
PC, what's the first storyline that you're following?
The first one I briefly talked about. It was the 40 to 44 year old women. And Chad will say something, but it's just stacked. I look at that and it's like you have Rebecca Voigt Miller, who's, I mean, she's had I think this will be her 11th appearance, Chad.
Well, 14th altogether. So
Yeah.
it was just 2007, and then 2020 are the only
Yeah.
years she hasn't been at the games. So.
And just
So
again,
look, 40 to 44, you said, PC?
yeah, and again,
Okay, I
she's
just want to bring
someone.
up the leaderboard.
Yeah, again, she's someone that that went into the season, and she did really good in the Open. She qualified through the semifinals to the quarterfinals. I think she finished in the top 100 in the quarterfinals in North America, and she got an invite to the Granite Games and was actually considering competing at the Granite Games until she got the official email saying you must choose one semifinal, and that means any semifinal, age group semifinal, team semifinal, whatever. So she I think she waited up until the week of. Her and Jen Ryan both were slotted to compete at the Granite Games. And if you think about it, if they actually would have took that invite, that semifinal also had Mal O'Brien, who's 17 years old, and then you have two 41, 42-year-olds competing against her, and then you have a lot of returners from last year. Myra Brandt, I think she finished in the top 10 last year. Obviously, you got Kelly Friel, Kim Owens. I mean, it's just that this field is stacked, and all these women they've been there before. A lot of them are former regional athletes. A couple of them competed on teams at the games. So this is going to be a fun one to watch. And obviously Kelly Friel and Chad again will go through the statistics when she's just a beast. And I mean, and she's not talked about as much as she should be, but she's a marvel. And when we watch her on the floor, if we get the chance, and that's what I'm imploring for people there, watch these Masters. You're seeing something that's just unbelievable.
Chad, what's your second storyline that you're following in the Masters?
Return of 3 women who are coming off injuries. First is Mary Beth, who I mentioned before. She had a bad shoulder injury, kind of took her out the last couple of years, and she's making a return back. I know she was really excited to be able to come back, because especially when get up there, when you're older, injuries take a lot longer to heal up, but she is coming back, and so I'm excited to see if she can do it again, podium and or win the division. The other is Cheryl Brost, and Cheryl is amazing. She's the 50 to 54-year-old division this year, but yeah, she was a former games individual in 2010, 11, and 12, and she had amazing finishes. At 2010, she was 13th. 11, she was 7th. And 12, she was 15th, and those are at the ages of 39, 40, and 41, which are just outstanding. But then she was even trying to go again in 13, and then I think I had an Achilles injury in regionals, in which she was she was ready to qualifying position again. So she missed 13, and then 14 came along, and then she just went into the Masters division and started cleaning up there. But she's had the injury bug kind of her career too. Missed, I think, last year and such. So I forgot what her recent injury is, but yeah, she's just an amazing athlete. I'm so excited to see her back. And the last one is Kelly Friel, who she had a minor injury. I don't know, I forgot what it was, but at the start of the season, I think she had like a little mini accident or something, but so she didn't do as well in the Open. I was kind of wondering what was going on, but then I saw she was injured, but she came back, and then she actually she won her division for semifinals. So, and she's coming in, but with Kelly, she's the last 3 years she's gone second, first, and just getting better with age. And another interesting stat on her was last year when the Masters can compete in semifinals and the age group only qualifier. She at quarterfinals for individual, she was 30th in the world for all women, regardless of age. So,
wow.
And then she went on to
that's a fun fact.
and she competed at the CrossFit Lowlands Throwdown, which was online, but she came in 16th there, and that was at the age of 43 years old. So. And what's also, yeah, she'll be coming in, and she'll be 44 years old this year. But I still think she can win it. And but it's interesting, of the whole history of Masters, there's only been 5 Masters that have won their age division at the last age of the division. So she's trying to be the 6th, and if anyone can do it, I think she can. She's just been getting better with age, and it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about it. I could almost make a pretty good argument that she was probably maybe the second best CrossFitter to come out of the UK. So right behind Sam. I know.
Ooh.
I mean, that can be controversial. You got Elliot Simmons and Stephen Fawcett on the men's side that have done very well. But if Kelly goes on and wins again this year and she keeps going, she's up in that conversation. So
that's a good conversation to be part of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
PC, what's your next storyline?
Tony Turski. Name probably isn't familiar, but we all know the name Ricky Gerard. And the reason why we know the name is because 2017 he finished on the podium. He tested positive for a banned substance, and he did his 4-year ban. Came back. He's coming back this year. He's coming back probably better than ever, according to him. But also that year, we had a bunch of masters that tested positive too for a lot of banned substances, and Tony Turski was one of those people. He actually himself finished on the podium, finished second on the podium for the 50 to 54-year-old. No, it was 55 to 59, and he served his ban, and he made it to the games this year, and he's going to be competing in the 60 to 64 age division. So, I mean, all this talk about someone like Ricky, and now you have, and this is a guy who himself has done the same thing, and he's coming back, and obviously fitness is a big part of his life. There's some controversy over some of the stuff that he tested positive for, because it was, he was, I guess he was taking something to help with low testosterone, but regardless, he served his sentence, and he's back and he's competing at the game. So it's a cool story. Depending, I mean, no matter how you feel in terms of when it comes to banned supplements, but the guy paid it. He did his 4-year ban. He's back. He's competing, and good for him.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking about Ricky Gerard all season. He's obviously a big storyline that we're going to be following. So I think that's an interesting note to make about Tony Turski too.
Yeah, and he'll be the first master to return from a ban.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to the games. Others have returned to compete, but to make it back to the games. So, and unfortunately, we're going to be seeing this storyline play out each year as these other past ban athletes start coming back. So most don't. Most usually kind of fade or don't come back, but a few do. So,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Chad, what's your next storyline?
Mine is kind of it's interesting seeing the kind of a grouping of the different masters age groups, whereas you see different themes or appearance streaks and such. And the most you definitely see is with the older divisions, the 60 plus, 64 plus, 60, 64. Those people, there's streaks going on there that are like, of course, Lynn Knappman, amazing, 12 games, but then there are a bunch with 9-game streaks, 8-game streaks and such, or appearances. And it seems like those groups, and when you look at those, if you look at the rosters this year, a lot of them were competing against each other all the last decade at different age groups throughout. It's really neat. There's a big camaraderie going. Granted, they've been around the most, so they can build that up, but in the middle groups, the 40-year-olds, you don't see that as much. There are kind of a group of men that you kind of see it in the, I think 45, 49, Kevin Grubb, Justin LaSala, Mike Kern. A couple of those guys do a podcast, a Masters podcast, with Jen Dieter. Yeah. And then Jen Dieter and Karen McAdam are the other two that they've been kind of going head to head their whole career. And so it's neat to see those groupings because they always talk about the camaraderie that they have there at the games that we don't see on the coverage, but it's probably one of the biggest aspects that they really appreciate and love and when they keep coming back. But then you shift to the younger group, the 35 to 39. It's always exciting to see them because a lot of those are obviously most are past games individuals or team members, and it's so fun to see them on the other side. But then they don't always stick around, and they maybe come in and play for a year or two, and they say, that's good. And it's understandable. They were competing at a high level most of their individual career, so it's hard to continue on. There's like the rare exception that we already talked about earlier with Rebecca Voigt. This is going to be her 4th year, so she's still pressing on with masters as like with individual. And And then on the guy side, we did kind of have that with Kyle Kasperbauer, but then he pulled the plug this year and like, yeah, I'm done. I mean, and it just kind of shows you got to really keep up. I mean, you got to take it seriously, like as you were an individual. Otherwise, you get passed up. And I think that's why some of these individuals might come in and they realize, man, I got to really work just as hard as I was as an individual. So they kind of falls off. So it'll be interesting to see. You get these different clusters of the different age ranges for the Masters, and more really love it, keep coming back, and the others like the younger kind of maybe not. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. We've only had 13 years of Masters to be the 13th year of Masters competition. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes in the future, or if it does, or if it keeps this general pattern.
Yeah, for sure. And PC, we're going to combine your last two into one because you're looking at the same age group, but with both men and women. What are you focusing on?
Well, like Chad said, it's like you always have these athletes that come there for 1 year and then you don't see them again. Last year was a really star-studded. You had Adrian Conway, James Hobart. Obviously, Kyle won his fourth title in that age group. Third.
Fourth. It was fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, because 2020 he didn't. They got rid of it. And then you had other games athletes that were in that. And this year we have the same. I mean, obviously he talks about the commitment, and you see someone like Sam Dancer who he went all in. I mean, he said he probably trained harder than he did as a Masters athlete this year than he did as an individual, and it shows. He's right now he's 3 for 3. He won the Open for their division. He won the quarterfinals. Won the semifinals. But yet he's going against a bunch of guys who have been there before. I mean, Roy Gamboa competed at the games last year. Brian Wong, he's been a fixture in the in regionals and semifinals, and then Justin Aarons, Greg Kenny, they've competed they've actually competed on teams, and then you have someone like Papadopoulos, who's he got invited to a semifinal but declined, so that way he can perform in the Masters. But he's one of the strongest guys in the world. I mean, the guy has like an over 600-pound deadlift. But that's going to be fun to watch. Now, whether these guys stick around for next year, we don't know. I mean, I would like to see that. And then on the women's side, again, we kind of have, we have a star-studded field. I mean, you have someone like China Choi is the name that kind of sticks out. But then, you have OGs like Carlene Matthews. Just like Roy Gamboa, you have Hapalainen, Amelia Lepanon, who was at the games last year, competed as an individual. She finished fourth in her semifinals, and and one thing to note about the women's field, you have 8 different countries being represented out of 10 athletes, which is amazing. I mean, it just shows you just the level of fitness that's coming out. It's really fun to watch. I mean, Anita Tucker is a person who's a returner, and everyone else is pretty much brand new, just showing up, having some fun. And the thing is, they've all been there before, and most of them are probably just doing their 1 hour a day fitness class, their CrossFit class, and then they kind of accidentally they've qualified for each stage, and as each stage they've qualified and made it on, they're like, oh shoot, now I need to start taking it seriously. So I got to see this last year with my coach Kelly Jackson, who was just casually just doing classes, and she made it to the games. But leading up to the games, she's like, oh my god, she went back into her old bag of tricks and started doing games training again, and it was harder for her because she hadn't been doing that all year round like most athletes do, most individual athletes. So now what you're going to have 20 athletes in this age group, 10 on the men, 10 on the women, that are just going to go, they're committed to it, and they're going out to win and have fun at the same time. I mean, just to see China Cho back on that floor smiling again, it's going to be fun to watch. And
for sure.
I'm hoping that fans watching that division will convince someone like Rich Froning or some of these people like, that maybe dip their toe into it, because that's what the division needs. I mean, you have a lot of great, Dan Bailey, we were robbed last year not seeing Dan Bailey on the floor, and I think that would have really made a big difference in that. And then, But who knows? If someone like Rich Froning decides he wants to go Masters, you might see someone like Dan Bailey and Josh Bridges. I mean, who wouldn't want the opportunity to beat Rich on a floor? Yeah, it's an older Rich, but so are they. So I think that'd be a great boost for the division if these OGs, these athletes who are now Masters, would stick around and do it, have fun. And who knows? I mean, you get someone like Rich doing the 35 to 39-year-old Masters, it brings more eyes on the division. Who knows? It might raise that prize purse a little bit, and maybe you might get some of that on TV as well.
That would be epic. Yeah. Rich has been dropping hints. I think, we've all heard about like, hey, I might entertain it now. Whereas he was kind of maybe, I'll never do Masters, but
Yeah, I had him on a couple of months back, and he said that he might just do it. So we're gonna hold on to that.
He's never not gonna not work out. That's the thing about him. It's like he he does a great job of it now, but he doesn't train like he does like an individual. He does team training, but he can maintain that team training, do that stuff, and still be the fittest guy out there. I mean, he's proven it every year in the Open, and so. Why not? Why not, Rich? Why not go out there, especially now that he's a brand and he has so many Masters athletes that follow the Mayhem athlete programming? What better like sales pitch than having the guy who runs it out there competing and showing that the programming works?
Yeah, no, that would be epic if he does go next year. It would. I think it would be so exciting. It would, the boost to Masters. Yeah. Oh my. So we shall see.
It would be great for the sport.
Oh,
Chad, what?
I bet you if he does do that, Adrian Conway comes back too.
Hobart.
See, now we're talking about time.
The teammates going head to head again. So.
Yeah, James Conway. I can see Bridges. I can see Dan. I can see you can
everybody just comes back.
Yeah,
it'll be like the road. I mean, hell, you might even see Jason Khalifa train for it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Chad, what would you say your bottom line is for the Masters division?
Before I do a quick fact check on myself, Casper Bauer's three championships, not 4. So I want to make sure I got that in. My bottom line is actually I kind of feel bad because there's so many master stories in all these divisions. I mean, we could talk forever, and that's they always talk about how they're kind of frustrated, like, oh, we don't get coverage, and they do get coverage, but when you start diving into this, I've been doing this for 10 years with Masters, and I still feel I'm not giving them enough coverage in my articles and stats and stuff. There's so many cool storylines out there. So if you're at the games, go watch these divisions. There's really a lot of interesting things going on. So the more Masters coverage we can give them, the better.
Yeah, especially on Thursday when they will be competing with the other age groups and the adaptive. PC, what is your bottom line?
I'm going to kind of echo the sentiments that Chad did. My first games experience was as a judge in 2017, and the first person I ever judged was Ron Ortiz, in the age group pavilion. And here's this hulking man, and he was just so kind to me. And then once I found out he was a firefighter and all this stuff, I became so interested. And then since then, I follow the Masters because I used to judge them. So I would like to know these stories of who I'm judging, and they're just kind-hearted people. They're regular people like all of us that just happen to be very fit. It's who we should strive to be as we get older. They're the best of us in terms of our fitness, and we should show up and applaud their efforts. I mean, hopefully that they'll have. I mean, last year they did a good job of bringing some of the events back into the Coliseum, and I'm hoping they do that again this year. Just go out and enjoy them. Get to know these people because they're so much more relatable, and they're the true spirit of the CrossFit Games. Believe it or not, I know they give that award out to someone. It's usually an individual, but I mean, in my mind, the spirit of the Games are these Masters athletes.
Guys, thank you so much, Chad, PC. We'll see you at the CrossFit Games. The full schedule is up. We don't know what the events are yet, but we're going to be watching closely.